This is again another important. Lot of countries, as we hear this, developing countries, developed countries and all that, keeping the about that point aside, but the point is that developing countries are looking upon developed countries. So ISO standards, how did ISO standard really get developed? These all standards which are getting developed are basically based on the past experiences of the various organizations which have been, which basically in turn have provided feedback to the ISO, and then that's where those standards have come. As Sir was talking about the people who basically are auditor or who are process consultant. These process consultants are not those guys who have just taken process consulting. They in past have worked in that particular domain for multiple years, and that is where now they are sharing their wisdom. And this wisdom is coming in form of best practice. If you see here, she is the Director General in Malaysia, and they are clearly saying that because of implementing best practices based on the ISO standards which they have taken up, they really had able to do a major turnaround. And this is a direct article taken from the ISO.org. This is again something basically a survey which is done by Hackett Group, a leading research organization. They are able to clearly articulate that those organizations which have implemented best practices had remarkable improvement in all the various aspects, being the total cost of ownership, or be it from assessment point of view, or from the aspect of ROI projections. In every aspect, they have measured each and every organization, and they really found out that best practices have really given them extremely high revenue, profitability, and growth. So that was from the number. These are the arguments. I'll hand it over to Ashish to take it forward.
Very well, I have points. Okay. Yes. Let me review 3 points, and I'll sum up, and then I'll pass it on to you for your submission. My first point was that Vijay gave an example about a person who's been doing the same job for 25 years and has been doing it the same way, being asked to think differently. I think this is exactly what I was trying to say with my slide, that management abdicates responsibility. The job of the management is also to manage the people. You're basically trying to avoid a problem by going outside. Once you get a new process into the company, that person will still have to change the way they work, the way they have worked for 25 years. And that is a problem that you have to face head on. You cannot avoid it by taking them as practice. So that was exactly what I was trying to say. Next, you gave us a slide which indicates that, for example, East is borrowing from the West, which happens, absolutely. But the real innovation, the real beauty of our business today lies at the bottom of the pyramid, says C.K. Pradhan. Coke, Vodafone, HSBC, name the institutions. All of them are borrowing from their India operations. Incidentally, Vodafone has picked up the operations group of India to define the process for Europe because they are running such a low-cost operation. It is not always necessary that things have to be done in a certain fashion just because they have been done in a certain way over there. We have been doing similar things. Other organizations have also been doing things which are unique to them, and that is why they have worked so well. Then we come to the point of having anyway, let me come to the point of overall the best example that we have seen of best practices being useful or not. The slide that you showed us, can you go back to the slide, one of the graphs? One of those slides, first of all. This one? Yes. Yeah. What were the best practices that we followed?
See, basically, as part of, I haven't completely gone through in detail, but what they basically have done is that they have taken these various aspects. They have taken on sampling basis organizations of similar in nature in every pocket. Accordingly, similar sampling was done from pharmaceutical, from manufacturing, and then they have taken up these organizations which have adopted. So there are best practices here, and I'm not even referring to IT. In this particular survey, this organization has went ahead and done the generic, not only IT, but everything from the best practice perspective, be it ISO implementation, especially where more than 35,000 standards are there. So those organizations which were following these ISO standards, so they have taken this comparison, and from that they have come to
right. I will not even, I'm not questioning the validity of the standard, first of all. I'm sure the data stands and values. What I'm basically wondering, what are those best practices that give me so much? I think every organization should follow. Using best practices as just one phrase is not sufficient. We need to know what best practices were implemented that gave us these results. I don't think clubbing one organization saying, for all you know, this organization might have followed one best practice, another one might have followed something else, and that might be unique to them. I think we need a little bit more information on this slide to understand it better. My 3 points stand, this is what I wanted to say. I think I will still stand by my 4 or 5 arguments that I've made in favor of this. That first of all, when you talk about best practices in any company, you basically are talking about getting information from outside and asking people to follow something that has been defined elsewhere. You're basically trying to remove the responsibility of management to solve problems by adopting or copying something which has been done elsewhere. You're also trying to increase the risk of the implementation failing because people will not accept it. And you're also trying, in a very, very simple fashion, to make sure that everyone knows that. When you want to follow best practices, be aware. Be very, very aware. No organization in this world at this point of time is here because they did not innovate disruptively. I have a Gartner research paper with me. If you can just open it, please. The Gartner follows Christian interview. I intended to use it for the enterprise debate. I didn't want to use it here.
So use it really.
Now, he makes some very good statements here. This is an interview between a Harvard professor and a Gartner fellow. And what they have said here is that no organization that exists today and has been around for 30 or 60 years has been here because it has been doing the same things in fashion. They have been disrupting, they have been doing disruptive innovation. That was a key point of this entire thing. They gave an example of IBM, very interestingly, GE again. I'll not comment on GE again because I know you will be better aware of that than me. But for IBM, I can tell you because I read a book called Elephants Can Dance by Louis Chestnut. Who says elephant cannot dance? That's a good book. It's about a transformation of a company which was very bureaucratic, very traditional, and eventually latched on to new concepts to evolve its processes to make IBM the way it is. If you can just scroll down, please. I want to focus on a simple quotation. For example, here you go. The odds overwhelmingly favor the incumbent leaders in the industry and strategists in innovation, whether they are simple, incremental innovations, or breakthroughs. I need another statement. Scroll down. Actually, no. I mean, I will circulate this. It's a really a well-known paper from Gartner. But the point I was trying to make using this paper was that even the industry agrees that any industry which has to survive here has to survive here on its own. You don't do things which others are doing in order to survive, in order to become better. You have to do something which is unique to yourself, and that cannot happen through best practice. That can only happen through something which is built to your organization. Thank you.
I'll just sum it up and in 3 points. So definitely, first thing which I'd like to correct, from this debate topic perspective, I'm not here to kill the concept of innovation. I fully agree with it, and innovation is the way to go, irrespective whether organizations implement best practice or not. Innovation should not stop. I'm not at all against innovation. Innovation, please, it should continue. GE's caption itself was, when I was there, innovation at work. And then they have imagination at work, which in turn again basically interprets innovation at work. So that is one of the things which we are saying, yes, please do not stop thinking, go for the innovation part. But here the point which we are saying is, and where I was a little bit confused as you spoke about, and I'm not really saying West should follow or East should follow West and all that, because you mentioned that and you spoke about C.K. Prahalad, and this is where I am saying, why are people following C.K. Prahalad? Why are those organizations following now? They should have also, Vodafone and everybody which you mentioned, they should have said, no, C.K. Prahalad, it is his innovation. He will follow what we are doing. We are good. No, we will do it. But they didn't do it. They said, let's take what this guy is giving. So it's both ways. Standards and best practices need not be only from one particular region. It can be from East, it can be from West, it can be from North, it can be from South.
Vijay, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Just on this point. The book, Value, which talks about value at the bottom of the pyramid, does not say that. It says that innovation happens there. That's what it says. It doesn't say that you have to take innovation from one point to another. It just says innovation happens there. And the point I was trying to make is that these companies, while they expanded in India, Coke, Vodafone, all these European and American companies came here, they had their own way of doing things, but they did not work here. If you compare the IT tariffs of the telecom tariffs across the globe, we have one of the cheapest tariffs. And there is a reason why it's so, because the operations here are managed slightly differently. And that's a best practice which was grown here to suit the business. That's what the customer wants. And that is what I was trying to make the point. It was not that you have to basically borrow from this or anything like that.
Absolutely. So the point is again not killing innovation. Best practices are not killing innovation. Best practices, if they are really helpful, and just to quote again your earlier point when you mentioned this graph is really very good, and I'm really tempted on how this, and I would like to know the best practice. That is what is the catching point. See, you were interested. What is that best practice which is giving you this? Let me follow it up. So, you are saying in the conversation, it made you think that let me not use my innovation and just blindly follow the
Actually, what I wanted to be was sarcastic, but I was pretty nice, I think. My point is, when I see graphs like these, with no elaboration on how exactly things have happened, I wonder why did I miss this? Why did my company miss this? What kind of best practice is it that once implemented solves all my problems? I see everything green. And not just by 1 or 2%, 32% to 62%, 19% to 77%. That seems like a graph taken from a paper published in a conference, honestly. And again, not going to say this is wrong, this is right. All I'm saying is, we have to quantify what we have done. If you're talking about best practices in a company, if you're talking about best practices in the industry, let's talk about specifics. I don't want to say here again that unless the best practice was unique to that organization, it probably wouldn't have worked.
Thank you. And this is where, if you see my beginning of the discussion itself, my discussion was not that you must follow best practices. Best practices should be followed in the true sense, and this is where, if I take your example where you mentioned, absolutely right, you would like to get into the details, find out what's good for you, and then take it forward. And this is what we are saying. There are multiple best practices. Do your due diligence, you find out the goal, drill down to the data level, and then if you think, yes, this is appropriate, then absolutely no shame in taking it. Blindly copycat, no problem, because now you have done your due diligence. But saying that I will not at all follow best practices, that's really a problem. And saying that best practices always lead to increase in cost, that is also a problem. Please accordingly use your judgment, use the right due diligence methodology, and then definitely you can go for best practices. Thank you.
On a lighter note, sometimes best practices seem to sound like a movie script. Put in one masala number, get in a comedian, get in a villain, we have good movie ready. Usually things are a little bit beyond that, and I would still say that best practices help. And I think we're already getting to the stage of consensus, so I'm going to make my concluding remarks at the provision for it here. Obviously, best practices help, but best practices help when they're taken in context of the business that they're being implemented. I began my argument by giving you a statistic about the 70% workforce being employed in routine activities. And if we can free these people from these routine activities, obviously we're making an impression. So I would say best practices can only help you sustain the hygiene of a company. It can never help you move forward. Moving forward, you need to have some level of uniqueness to your organization, which possibly a best practice might not be the best.